I never understood why my in-laws disliked me despite all I did for them and their son until their anniversary party, which I paid for. During the celebration, they publicly accused me of leeching off their son, who hasn't worked in 8 years. I couldn't hold back and took over the event to set the record straight. Now they're mortified because all the guests have turned against them. So my husband Landon, 36, and I, 34, have been together for 12 years and married for 9. We have pretty much been soulmates and get along for the most part, except when it comes to my in-laws. I don't know why, but they have never really liked me or accepted me as part of the family. I honestly did not know the real reason until a couple of days ago when they finally announced it at their anniversary party. Before I get into that, I need to give some context about the situation I'm in. Landon is what one would call a house husband. When we got married, 1 year into our marriage, we realized that I was making a lot more money than he was since I was working at my dad's electrical appliance business and training to take over once he retired. Landon said that he wanted to be at home and take care of household chores because he really hated his job and thought it was a waste of time. I thought it was a pretty big decision to make, but as long as he was fine with it, I was fine with it as well. It was a mutual decision, and we have been sticking to that for the past 8 years. My father retired almost 6 years ago, and since then, I have been the CEO of our company. I don't mean to brag, but I make a lot of money. My husband is happy, and so am I. I don't really understand why anybody else would have a problem with it, but for some reason, my in-laws just assumed that he was the primary breadwinner of the family. To be fair, we had never really told them about our situation, but honestly, that was just because my in-laws are very old school and orthodox. Landon knew that if they found out he was a house husband and had not been working, they would completely lose their minds. He said he did not want to go through the trouble of telling them the truth, so we had never told them about the situation. They didn't actually know that he had not been working for the past 8 years. Whenever we met them, we would pretend that he was still working at his previous company, but we did not get into the details and would change the topic as soon as it came up because we did not think it was important enough to be discussed that way. We were able to avoid a lot of awkward discussions and unnecessary conversations, and we were happy that way. On top of that, they already did not like me by the time Landon and I got married, so I did not want to make things worse for myself by telling them the truth about our marriage. That he stayed at home and took care of our household while I was the one who worked and brought home the money. Now, a lot of you might be wondering why I still tried to get along with them and kept in touch with them even though it was very clear that they didn't like me. Even Landon has apologized to me for all of this several times, but there was just no way that we could cut them out of our lives permanently. That's because my mother-in-law Sheila is a cancer survivor and has battled 2 types of cancer in the past 8 years. First, she was diagnosed with skin cancer, and then, a couple of years later, with brain cancer. She's a very lucky lady who has survived both and is in remission now, but after she has been through so much, we just couldn't find it in ourselves to cut them off. If that was not bad enough, my father-in-law Bob has had 2 heart attacks in the past 4 years. So I guess you can understand the position we were in and why we could not cut them out of our lives despite their weird behavior around me. I wouldn't say that they were rude or nasty to me like some other in-laws are, but whenever I was around, they were always very cold with me, and it was something that everybody in the room could pick up on. Even when I was dating Landon and met their family for the first time, they had been a bit off, but after we got married, they got even more distant and cold. However, given their condition, I decided to just suck it up and deal with it because I didn't want to be the person who told Landon to cut his parents out of his life just because they were a bit weird around me. He was extremely thankful to me for it. The real reason I felt really bad for them was because I had lost my mother to cancer a couple of years before I met Landon, so I did not want to make matters worse for them. I would try to help them financially whenever I could. Both of them are retired, so they would sometimes ask Landon to help them out with certain expenses. Landon did not exactly have any money, so I would be the one who wrote them a check, but I would always make it out to be from both Landon and me because if it was just me, it would seem a bit suspicious. We didn't want them to figure out that Landon had not been working for the past 8 years. Every event they had, every vacation they took, every fancy thing they did, has been thanks to me. I would think that they would be a little thankful because, even though according to them it was both Landon and me contributing to their finances, I still believe that if I was part of it, then I deserved a bit of appreciation. But I never had any luck with them. Recently, I even organized their anniversary party to celebrate their 40th year of marriage. Of course, according to them, it was both Landon and I who organized the entire thing, but I was still a part of it, so I thought that they would be thankful to me. However, at the party, they decided to make a speech, and it was a particularly nasty one. I think after that there's no going back to having a relationship with them. In retaliation, I cleared up certain things that I think were long overdue. As soon as we showed up at the party, Landon's parents started acting weird almost immediately. I could not figure it out at the time, but when they were making the speech, I realized it was because of my new car. A couple of weeks ago, I bought a fancy new luxury car for myself. Landon is still driving his old one because he doesn't really go out that much, and if the two of us need to show up anywhere, we get around together in my car. But that day, Landon had shown up at his parents' house in the afternoon, and I had to come by in the evening after work, so we had come separately, and I had driven my own car there. I guess that had rubbed Landon's parents the wrong way. When they were asked to make a speech for the anniversary, they said that they were celebrating 40 years of being together, but also wanted to take the moment to talk about something that had been bothering them. They then turned to me and started saying that they really did not appreciate the fact that I was mooching off their son for so long and wanted to put an end to it. They had not said anything about it for years because they thought I would change, but it had been almost 9 years, and it was going to be a decade, and I had not changed my ways. Then they went on to talk about how I had bought a new car and how it was so shameless of me to do so on my husband's money while their son is still driving around in an old car. They also said it was not lost on them that their son dressed modestly while I was always dressed up in expensive brands from head to toe, which they thought was a very brazen and unnecessary display of my dependence on my husband. They wanted to address this issue publicly because they had stayed quiet for long enough and now wanted to make me realize that I was being a gold digger. After that speech, I completely lost it because all the guests were staring at me. Being cold to me was one thing, but humiliating me like that publicly was just not acceptable. So I decided to take over the event and made my own speech where I cleared everything up. Since then, Landon's parents have been constantly bothering us because they think we made a fool out of them. For the record, Landon himself does not have a problem with what I said because he knows it's the truth and it was bound to come out eventually. Once they were done with their speech, I got up on stage. They tried to get me to shut up by saying it wasn't necessary for me to debate with them at that point, but I told them that not only was it necessary, it was very important for them to hear me out as well. So I went on to clarify that for the past 8 years, Landon hadn't had a workday in his life, and it was all thanks to me. I told everyone in the family about the secret we had been keeping from them for so long and revealed that Landon was actually a house husband while I was the breadwinner of the family. Contrary to what my in-laws believed, I was actually financing them all along, and they had been ungrateful enough to make a horrible speech about me in public. I also told them that Landon wore modest clothes and drove an old car by choice, but no one could accuse me of depriving him of anything or making him feel small like they had been trying to do to me. I admitted that not telling them the truth about our financial situation might have been a mistake, but I doubted that it would have changed anything. They would likely have found a reason to hate me anyway. For the past 8 years, every time we helped them out with money, I made it very clear that I played an equal part in supporting them, yet they were never grateful for it. We lied to them for our own peace of mind because even before we started lying, they still disliked me for no reason. Now that the truth was finally out, saw no reason to stick around and get insulted by them any longer. Landon and I left, but before we did, we took a good look at everyone's faces in the crowd. All the guests were disgusted by what was going on. After we got home, it felt like a burden had been lifted off our shoulders. We had been keeping up with these lies for the past 8 years, and now that it was finally out, we had nothing to worry about anymore. But the next day, Landon's parents called him up and told him that what happened at the party was incredibly wrong. We had thought they were going to apologize or at least attempt to sort things out with us, but instead, they accused us of being horrible people for lying to them for so long. Even worse, they said I was a terrible person for making that humiliating speech against them and making them seem like bad parents. First of all, I don't think I made them seem like anything. I just held up a mirror to them. I might agree that we were wrong for lying, but honestly, what other choice did we have? If we hadn't lied to them, they probably would have made life a nightmare for us by constantly bothering us about our situation and harassing Landon to get a job. He wouldn't have been able to cut them off because of their illnesses, and we would have gone crazy with guilt if we did that. So I can still justify the lying because they disliked me from the beginning even before we did anything, but I can't understand why they hated me so much even though they knew I was also contributing financially to help them out. All the checks we made out to them always had my name on them along with his. When Landon demanded an explanation for that, they had nothing to say and tried to switch the topic back to how we had lied to them and fooled them for years. They also claimed that my speech made everyone they knew hate them almost instantly, but Landon insisted they tell us why they hated me so much because at this point we needed to know. They knew I played a huge role in organizing their anniversary party, spoke to all the vendors and everything. They believed we were splitting the cost of organizing it, and they could see for themselves that I had been speaking to all the vendors, but even then, it wasn't enough for them. After everything I had done for his family, his parents still wanted to hate me. Landon was saying all these things, but then I heard screaming from the other end. His mother was so loud I could hear her even though I was sitting a few inches away from him. She said we had been gaslighting them for years, and she was never going to forgive us now. Because of my speech, everyone in their life hated them, and she was just disgusted with both of us. Then she hung up. They've been texting Landon a lot, saying we need to tell them how much money they owe us because they don't want to take any sort of favors from me. They wanted to return everything I had helped them with so far, even if it meant selling everything they had. They didn't want my help because I was a liar. So now I'm feeling weird about all of this and I feel really guilty. Am I the a-hole for lying to my in-laws about my husband having a job and for making a speech at their anniversary party to expose the truth? Update 1. It has been 1 week since the party, and Landon and I decided it would be in our best interest to just block my in-laws and move on since clearly there's no talking to them. There's just no reasoning with them because they just want an excuse to hate me. They've always disliked me. I'll still agree that we probably shouldn't have lied to them for so long because that definitely made them feel very betrayed. But I don't think telling them the truth would have made them like me any better. So far, we kept in touch with them because I felt bad that they had to deal with so many illnesses and I didn't want to take their son away from them. But now Landon has had enough. He's been apologizing to me every day since the party and he thinks it's all his fault. But I told him he's not responsible for the actions of his parents. A lot of his relatives have also reached out to me to let me know they stand with me and that what my in-laws did at the party was not acceptable. Most people have cut my in-laws off and I wouldn't say that I feel good about it because they're just a lonely old couple. To be honest, I'm not going to encourage it because I still have a heart. No matter how I've been treated, I can't wish ill upon anyone. But I'm not going to go out of my way to discourage it either. It's people's personal choice whether they want to cut them off or not, and I'm not going to interfere with that. Anyway, all of this has really frazzled my nerves and I just want to stop thinking about it and move on with my life. Landon and I are planning to take a short trip to get away from all of this on the weekend. At least one good thing is going to come out of all this drama. We'll be able to use it as an excuse to get away from everything and have some time to ourselves to process everything. A couple of days ago, Landon and I blocked Bob and Sheila everywhere. We left no stone unturned to ensure they wouldn't be able to contact us. Yesterday, we left in the morning for a short trip to the beach, but I just received a phone call from the alarm company saying they had detected someone trying to break into our house, which set the alarms off. I was instantly willing to bet my entire bank balance that it had to be Bob and Sheila. So, as soon as I received that phone call, I logged into those security cameras to review the footage, and of course, it was them. We noticed that they had been standing outside our door ringing the bell for almost 15 minutes before they tried to get in by other means. They managed to do so by doing the craziest thing. They broke the glass bay window in our living room to get in by grabbing bricks that they had brought along, probably for this particular purpose. I made a note of that so that I would be able to sue them later on and get my money back because it was a pretty expensive door to install in the first place. It was also very brave of them to try that given their age and circumstances. Anyway, after they got in, they hadn't yet left when I received that phone call from the alarm company. While I was reviewing the footage, I realized that they must still be in our house, so I decided to call the cops immediately. I also informed my neighbor, who was a very good friend of mine, about what was going on. Within half an hour, the cops had arrived and escorted them off our property. Now the DA gets to decide whether they will be charged or not. They probably won't be because they are really old and they can just act like they're senile or something, but it really pissed me off that they did something like this. For now, I had contacted my neighbor and she managed to get somebody to install a makeshift glass to replace the one that had been shattered. It's much cheaper than the previous one, so we have to get that replaced with something better as soon as we get back home. Mark my words, I'm going to make sure that Bob and Sheila cough up the money they've cost us. Not just that, I'm going to demand every single penny back from them because the way they are acting is really pissing me off. But Landon and I wanted to spend the weekend together, and we had already made up our minds that nothing was going to stop us, not even their antics. So we are still spending the weekend here on the beach, and we'll deal with everything later once we get back to the city. Update 2. Just as I had expected, the DA dropped the charges against them given their age. Landon told me that his dad is really good friends with someone who is related to the DA, so this might have had something to do with that as well, which seems really unfair, but I'm not going to pursue it anymore since it's not really worth it. Also, once we did a full sweep of the house, we realized that nothing was missing, so it's not like they stole or damaged anything inside the house. To be very frank, I don't even know what they were doing inside. But I'm still going to send them a legal notice and have them pay me back the money for replacing the glass door. I've already sent them an email saying that they need to return all the money they owe since they had made such big claims themselves. They had been demanding figures from us earlier, saying they wanted to know how much they owed me since they were not willing to take a single dollar from me. Now they can finally return the favor and pay me back everything that I have spent on them so far. We calculated it, and over the past 9 years, they had accumulated almost $80,000. And now they are indebted to me until they can return the full amount. I might have felt bad about it, but after the break-in incident, I really don't think they deserve my pity. Even Landon has said that I'm doing the right thing, and I think I'm doing it pretty late. So far, I've always tried my best to be kind and generous, but some people just don't deserve it. I have spoken to my lawyer, and he has told me that according to the footage, it's pretty clear that they were the ones who caused damage to the glass door, so they're going to have to pay to replace it. He's not very sure if we can get the rest of the money back, though, since there was no contract or legal document to prove anything, so that might be a bit difficult. But for now, I'm just going to keep emailing them until they finally agree to give it back to me, or at least until one of us gets tired, and preferably it's going to be them. To be really honest, I don't need the money as badly as they do, but after all the humiliation I've had to face, I don't think it's worth it to just let it go. Update 3. A couple of weeks ago, we sent a legal notice to my in-laws and demanded that they cough up the money they owed us for replacing the glass door in our house. Honestly, it was a very easy process, and within 2 weeks, we were able to come to a settlement and they paid us the amount in full. The worst part wasn't actually that, it was having to see them and deal with the interaction that took place when we met with our lawyers. We had to maintain decorum, so they didn't exactly behave like crazy old people, but once we were out in the parking lot, it was anybody's guess. I had figured that they wouldn't have anything to say to us anymore, and we were about to go home. Landon and I had driven there in my car, that new one, and obviously, I should have guessed that they had a huge problem with it and just automatically thought I was trying to rub my wealth in their faces. Sheila came right up to me while Bob stood behind her, and she spat on the ground beside my feet and told me to get out of there as quickly as I could because otherwise I would regret it. I was caught totally off guard. Then she said that this is exactly what I deserved for humiliating them at their party because now nobody wants anything to do with them and it's all my fault. When Landon came to my side and said that this was unacceptable behavior, she told him that she didn't even want to speak to him because he was just as nasty as I was and a humongous loser who had no money of his own, so he had no right to say anything. Then I don't know what got into Bob, but he climbed onto the hood of the car and punched the windshield so hard that not only did he injure himself, but he also managed to crack the windshield a bit. Sheila thought she was being very cool and said I didn't need to worry because she would also send me the money to get that fixed along with what they already owed me. Landon and I were dumbstruck and had no idea how to react to that. We would have called the cops, but they were already let off with just a slap on the wrist once, and we were pretty sure it would happen again. Anyway, we decided to ignore that because we were going to get the money back anyway, so nothing mattered to us. All we wanted to do was move on, and we don't really care if they get punished or not because after this they're going to be on their own, and I think that's punishment enough for them. We don't need to get the law involved anymore since we are just done and don't want to deal with all of that. So that's what happened, and now we're just looking forward to living a peaceful life and having nothing to do with either Bob or Sheila anymore because they're just not worth our time or energy. Update 4. Earlier, I had said that I didn't want them to be completely isolated from the rest of the family, but I think now I've changed my mind. Landon has contacted most of his relatives and told them about everything that has happened, and he has said that from this point forward, if they are invited to any family get-togethers or other holidays, the two of us will not be attending. Most people have responded positively to that. Nobody has anything nice to say about them and said they want nothing to do with these people, especially after what they found out from us. The line has been drawn and it's not going to be crossed anymore. Update 5. Hey, so it has almost been 1 year since I posted here, and something happened yesterday that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm pregnant. We found out about it a couple of weeks ago, and yesterday we decided to throw a party for our pregnancy announcement and invited a bunch of people. We were not exactly planning on this, but it just happened and I was kind of skeptical about it because I'm almost in my late 30s now, but it just felt right, so we're going on with the pregnancy and everyone's really happy about it. So yesterday, after almost a year of no contact, guess who showed up at our party uninvited? Yep, it was Sheila and Bob. When they showed up at our door almost an hour before the party was supposed to begin, I did something I had been waiting to do right from the beginning. When Sheila said that she wanted to put everything in the past and start afresh now that she was going to be a grandmother, I spat on the ground and told her to get lost just like she had done to me 1 year back. Then I shut the door with a slam. They kept ringing the doorbell for a couple more minutes after that, but then I opened the door and told them that if they didn't leave, I would call the cops once again, and this time I wouldn't let them off so easily. So they demanded to speak to Landon, but he came out and told them that since he wasn't an earning member of the family and was such a humongous loser, he didn't feel that he was worthy enough to have any sort of discussion with them, and it would be better for them to leave. After that, they had been humiliated enough, so they left. We're really happy because now I can demand a restraining order against them. Now that I'm pregnant, I don't want to risk anything, and I don't want them in my life ever again, so I'm going to make sure of it.